Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and last week I was able to use some new tools with my in-person Castles and Crusades group. So I'm going to take a look at the ones that I used. Let's roll it. So I am not an artist. Me drawing maps on a battle board is not going to be good for anyone. I'm also a little bit of a spaz, so placing terrain down and managing to move minis around without throwing them around the room is going to be a challenge for someone like me, which is where Arkenforge comes in. This is a VTT that is designed to be, from the ground up, an in-person virtual tabletop. It displays your maps, and even better, it's also a map maker. So this is really cool because when you put an asset into an Arkenforge map, it remains to be interactive. You're not flattening it out to an image in order to get it into a virtual tabletop. It's right there. So when you activate the player screen, and you want to open a door, well, that door swings open the way that a door would in real life. And if you want to block a door, because say there's a large creature on the other side of it, and you're not ready to fight them right now, and you're all out of your iron spikes, but there's a stack of crates over in the corner because that's where crates go, you actually can pick them up and move them over to block that door. It's a really cool way of helping the map become more and more immersive. I really love Arkenforge. The speed is fantastic. I like the fact that there's a dual screen support that is built into it, so there's no hacks to open up another browser tab to go to an external screen like I used to have to do with Foundry. It just works. I turn it on and I go. And all my players remarked how much they liked at how easy and how smooth all the animations were now that we were with Arkenforge. Tokens just glided across the screen and it really made them happy. So I'm really appreciative of Arkenforge and I plan to be using it a lot more in the future. Now, for the first couple of years of me being a regular GM, I was using my preferred writing software in order to do my notes for campaigns and writing up NPCs and creating places and all that sort of thing. And that's Scrivener. It worked really well for me. I could make links back and forth between the different pages and it was okay. But recently, thanks to a video from Misfit Adventures, whose YouTube channel you really should go check out, she's fantastic, I was introduced to this thing called Scabard. And this is a campaign manager online, just like World Anvil, something like that. It's got all the main features that you need. You can create characters, you can create NPCs and places and locations and objects and groups and manage adventures and start your campaigns. It's got all that built in, but where it really shines is that it's simple and fast. World Anvil's got a whole lot of bells and whistles, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I want something quick and light and just moves, and that's what Scabard does to a T. In fact, what's really cool about it is when you go to create your connections between the different pages that you make, everything that you make in it is a page, a character, a place, a sub-region for a town. They're all just different pages, and you can create links to them just by going to a connections page and putting it in. Type in the page that you want to link to, and that link is made. Even better, if that page doesn't exist yet, it's going to prompt you to create a short description for it, and then it will create that page for you to go in and fill out later. Really, really cool. But the killer feature of Scabard is its proper pronoun detection. If you write out a description of a place or an object, or say you're writing out a tavern and you mention who the owner of it is, Scabard, when you save it, will mark out all the things it thinks are proper pronouns. And if you say, yep, that is one, it will create the page, ask you which type it is and what relationship it has to the page that you were originally editing. So if that's the owner, you say, this is the owner of this tavern, and now that connection exists all in one fell swoop. You go out and you just fill out the rest of it later. It is fantastic. Not 100%. It doesn't catch every proper pronoun because sometimes you're just making up wacky things and Scabard apparently thinks you're talking about gibberish, but it is on enough that it is such a great tool to have. I am really impressed with it. Scabard has become my go-to to keep track of all of my campaigns, and it will be for the near future. Even better, for the middle tier, which is what I'm on, it's only $54 a year, and that's not a whole lot of cash for something this powerful. For my initiative tracking, I have been using the note-taking app Obsidian. And calling Obsidian a note-taking app is really doing it a disservice because it's more like a platform that you can take notes in. When you install Obsidian, whether it be on your PC or your phone or a tablet device that works the same all the way through, and if you sync it through something like iCloud, everything stays in sync, so that's great. And if you go into their settings and you find community plugins, you will find tools for just about anything you might want to do in a TTRPG. There is a 3D dice roller. There is a creature stats creator. There is a full campaign manager. And there is what I'm using, the initiative tracker. Now, the initiative tracker is really powerful. I'm using the generic one, generic TTRPG initiative tracker, and it will do things like allow me to set up my combat in advance. I just tell it which characters are going to be involved, which creatures are going to be involved, and what the name of the encounter is. And when I activate it, it brings up a little sidebar window that has the initiative tracker on there. I can put in my initiative numbers by hand when I have the players around the table roll, or I can have it automatically roll for me, which if I have a bunch of creatures and I don't want to tip off how many people are going to be in this fight, well, that's one way to do it. The other cool thing that I can do with this initiative tracker is mark conditions. Any note in my Obsidian Vault, which is marked with condition, will actually show up in a drop-down list so that I can say, they're stunned, they're prone, they're entangled, they're grappled, and it will mark them on the initiative so when their next turn comes up, I know how to handle it. Really, really helpful. The one downside of Obsidian, and the reason why I'm not using it for everything at this point, is because it requires a little bit of heavy lifting. It either assumes that you know how the structure of things works or that you have enough time to figure it out. It is not totally difficult for me. I've created my own creature stat blocks. I've set up adventures. Obviously, I'm using the initiative tracker. But if it's not something that you're used to doing, if you don't want to do all that heavy lifting in advance, maybe Obsidian is not for you. But it is worth checking out because as a platform, it is a really cool app. I like to keep track of things like time and seasons and days inside my TTRPG campaigns. It helps me keep track of how long the party's been together, how long it took them to get from one location to another. This is all stuff that I find really helpful. When I'm using Foundry, I have plugins that handle that right inside the virtual tabletop, but for my in-person game, I needed to find something that would handle that for me. And lo and behold, I came across fantasycalendar.com. This is a service which you can sign up for free and I think get 3 calendars for free, but you can also pay just a couple dollars a month for a subscription that opens up some added benefits, which I'm actually considering doing. Fantasycalendar.com is fantastic. You can do things like create your moons for different phases and it will show up on the calendar. You can create your own names of months and days and your range of years. How do they measure time? I've not yet gone so far as to create my own months and my days. I essentially treat it like we're using the universal translator. So they have their own ones, but we're just using our names for it because it helps a little bit. But I could go in and make it all my own, and that would be really neat. With fantasycalendar.com, I can keep track of the time. I actually know when sunrise and sunset and twilight is going to happen because I've said where my adventures are taking part in my world, up more in a temperate zone at a certain time of year. And because I've given it a location and the time of year, it also will go so far as to create weather effects so that I know the temperature and the precipitation and the cloud cover that's going for each day, which helps me to describe to players what their adventure looks like as they move. It's just not always a bright sunny day because I haven't thought of what the weather's going to be. Fantasycalendar.com handles that for me. If something happens inside the game, I can mark each day and say this notable event happen, like a character death. And I can also set something to be recurring. So if there is an anniversary or a celebration, a holiday that I want to be annual inside the game, fantasycalendar.com will remember that. This is a fantastic service. I am so glad that I stumbled upon it. And in fact, I might be moving all of my calendar tracking onto the system so they don't have to boot up my whole VTT every time I just want to see what day the party was traveling somewhere. Really helpful. My absolute MVP for me running my games in person is my Stream Deck. There is an app called the Stream Deck Companion that can run in conjunction with the Stream Deck typical interface, and it allows you to send signals to Arkenforge that will enable you to do all sorts of hotkeys with it without having to memorize all the combinations. Really helpful. And in fact, Arkenforge put out a tutorial that shows you how to do this that I'm going to link to below. If you have a Stream Deck and are using Arkenforge, you need to be putting these things together because it's just that good. Let me show you how I have this set up. So I've got a couple of pages. The first is essentially to create light and fog. So I have, there's my page listing. That's my light button. There's my fog on and off. I can change my mode, change the blocking, and I can change the way that the brush works. So if I want to have my fog of war working with only the brush and token vision doesn't matter, that's that. Vision only, I don't have to worry about fog of war with my brush at all, or a mix of both. That is what I can do. And then I have a reveal mode and the hide mode set up. And I can also set the shape of the brush. So if I'm in more of a cavernous area, I can put the circle brush on and be able to go into all the little nooks and crannies. But if I'm in a square room, I don't want the circle, I want a square, I can change to that as well. Really, really helpful. And when it works in conjunction with Arkenforge, it's really cool. So if I have my Arkenforge set up and I have a player who is in front of a door, I can open it and the door will be revealed. I can take my token and I can move in, and there is now, that room is totally revealed. However, they go back out and I shut the door. Well, they're going to be able to see it, and nobody likes that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to hide mode and make sure that it's on brush and vision, and I'll go to my square brush, and now I will paint that out. And you see that it's going to disappear from the player's view. The default for the size of the brush is going to go to 1 square on your grid. If I want to do more than that, you have to add up a little bit. You see there's a crack in the door and vision is on, so it can actually see through there. Really helpful. I really love this. It really is cool. I can also turn on and off the light. So now they're just in the dark. It's so much fun. So on the second page, I have a whole bunch of things that I can do that control tokens or point things out on the map. So I have my ping types. There's my basic ping. If I want people to say, hey, you might want to look at that door, there you go. If I have a question or an alert, I can change that as well. So, hey, you hear something from behind the door. That's kind of dangerous. Or if I go, hey, you want to move over here, that all will show up. Really fun. It's just a nice way for people to have their attention drawn to that spot as we're playing. I also am able to activate a splash screen, which allows me to change the map underneath. If I'm adding tokens or even changing the map, they don't have to watch it, and I can turn that splash screen off again. I can also, if there's a token that dies, I can put a splatter on them and say, hey, they're done now. They're not going to be in combat anymore. I can also change their tint or their hue to give them different colors. So if they have a different condition, I can just say, oh, look, they're now asleep or they're grappled. I just need to be able to say which color is which. Unfortunately, right now, there's no way to do a hotkey for a specific hue or saturation amount on a token. I'm hoping that comes out in the future, because then I can just have a page that does nothing but conditions: grappled and prone and shocked and stunned. All these things I can put in and just say, okay, blink. And when that color happens, people know what has happened to that token. That would be really helpful, and I see the beginnings of it. I'm looking forward to more development on this in the future. So those are some of the tools that I use to create my environment where my players are playing. It was a fantastic experience for me and for my players as we were putting this all together, and I'll continue to be tweaking it as I move forward. There are some other initiative trackers that I might try other than Obsidian, and I'll see about how they can integrate into things as well. But if you're not using a battle mat, if you're not using terrain, which I understand that is the old school and, the purest way of doing things. I'm more of a digital guy, and I like to be able to set stuff up. And this is how I've done it. It really is helpful. So coming up on the channel, I am working on my Cypher system review. This is something that's gotten to my head. And I am also now reading the Numenera core book, and it's getting into my skull even a little bit more. Darn you, Monty Cook. And that'll be coming rather soon. The rest of this week, I'm going to be a little busy. It is Holy Week, and given my vocation, I'm going to be a little packed. But I wanted to get this out for you early on in the week so you could see what I'm using for my in-person games. Until we're able to see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.